Hi YouTube, it's Kathy, and this is my weekly entertainment wrap-up for November 11th to 17th. This week I read 4 books, I watched 3 shows, I watched 1 movie, and I listened to 1 book. First this week I finished City of Light, City of Poison by Holly Tucker. Continuing my very unofficial participation in Nonfiction November, I picked up this book about 17th century France, the first Parisian police chief, and a play-by-play of who Henry XIV was boinking at the time. This was also predominantly about the affairs of poison, a period of time in which about 400 people were questioned and either released, jailed, tortured, and/or executed for dealing with or being anywhere near poison. A lot of research went into this book, as luckily the police chief's notes were forgotten in a box somewhere and miraculously survived moves, renovations, and the fact that the king burned the other copy of them so no one would know about the nobles who were involved. This also had a lot of moving pieces, mainly people, and I quickly lost track of who was who. I learned that France would torture people post-conviction and before they're executed to see if they'd give up any more names, as Nicolas de la Reynie kept meticulous notes of these questionings. All in all, a different structure would have worked better for me, but I admire all of the work that went into this book. On to a different detective, I read Goldie Vance Volume 2 by Hope Larson. Goldie and her best friend are out for a run on the beach when they come across a girl in a spacesuit. Where did she come from? Who is she? How can they help? The mystery and the rescue are a little absurd, but that's what I want from a comic like this. Especially because it comes with a side of friendship building, and we got to meet Goldie's mom, who works as a mermaid, which is just badass. I already put the next couple of volumes on hold at the library. Next, I vicariously visited my favorite place in the world by reading City of Ghosts by Victoria Schwab. Following a near-death experience, Cassidy has a new best friend, Jacob, the ghost who saved her. You'd think that she could tell her parents about this and they take it seriously given they co-author books about ghosts, but they think it's a phase, like having an imaginary friend. When her parents are offered their own TV show, they're off to Edinburgh to film the first episode. Unfortunately, a more haunted city means Cassie is more easily sucked beyond the veil. And perhaps Jacob hasn't been as truthful about her new powers as he should have been. I loved this and it just made me want to go back to Edinburgh so badly. I had to snicker a little at the map, as there is no way they're staying at the point indicated because that used to be a church and is now the hub for the Fringe Festival. It was fun to revisit so many stories of the city and so many locations I used to frequent daily. This is a middle grade book, so I read it in a few hours and I'm excited to see where the Blake family visits next. Finally, I read an e-arc of A Quick Guide to They, Them Pronouns by Archie Giovanni and Tristan Jimerson. This wee book is exactly what it says in the title. Archie is non-binary and Tristan is cis, so this book is designed to educate people who are not used to these pronouns and give some pointers and commiserate with non-binary folk for whom talking about your pronouns is very draining sometimes. It was presented as a comic with tons of dialogue and examples, and I foresee this being used in workplaces. This week in Survivor, we finished season 12, started season 13, and kept current with season 37, which had one of the best tribal councils I'd ever seen. Although I've never seen the older seasons before, it's fun to watch them with somebody who watched them when they aired. When he was back in his 20s, he was rooting for Aris because, as he says, he was also very self-righteous at the time. I asked him how he felt about the season as a 30-something, and we both believe that Terry was robbed. Season 13 started out with 4 teams that were separated by ethnicity, which the castaways seemed to be weirded out by, and is something the show has never done again. But it had the bonus advantage of having 15 people of color on the show instead of the usual 1, 2, or none of that time frame. This season has thrown in quite a few twists, which I always find delightful. As for 37, wow. It was speculated that a brochacho blindside was in the works, and the way that played out was delicious. I'm sad for who went home, but it was executed so well. I also watched another 21 episodes of Steven Universe, and since the show has about a 10-minute runtime, we are still in the first season. These characters are so adorable and I love them. I had one of the songs stuck in my head about 24 hours before we're going to meet up and keep watching episodes, and I wasn't even mad about it. I also watched the entire first season of Station 19, the fire department spin-off from Grey's Anatomy. And I need the next episode so badly. These cliffhangers were so much easier to deal with when I can just watch the first 12 seasons of Grey's all in one go. I am really invested in these characters, and at least 2 of the firefighters are queer, and those 2 people are not together, which means that they occasionally get together with other queer people. I loved finding out in the first episode that one of the men had a husband, as it was dropped in so seamlessly in the first 10 minutes or so. But we found out that the husband was no longer alive in the second episode, which gave me bury your gays worries. I decided I would be mad about it if he didn't have a love interest by the end of the first season. And although somebody does come into his life, I need to wait until at least the next episode to evaluate my feelings. I'm being vague because this season finale is a doozy, and if you haven't seen it already, I don't want to give anything away. After that finale, I went to Netflix to find a comedy and unfortunately picked Downsizing. This movie is about an unreversible scientific process by which people are shrunk and live in tiny villages, thus decreasing their impact on the planet because they use far less resources. Although it has some jokes, some were insensitive sight gags that didn't land for me, and mostly this movie made me feel depressed about the inevitable decline of our species. The one thing this movie did right, besides bringing up climate control and human impact on the Earth, was discuss what this technology would be like for people other than rich or middle-class white American folks. The pacing was slow, and I kept zoning out and just checking my Instagram feed during the slow bits. This week, I listened to Muse of Nightmares by Laini Taylor. It felt so good to be back in this world because if you've been here for a while, you know that I like my bookish books. Since this is the sequel to Strange the Dreamer, there is not much I can discuss plot-wise. Besides, this story interweaves with a brand new character whose story started way before the original characters were even born. I loved the writing, the resolutions, and the quiet moments between the bouts of action. If you haven't picked up this duology and you have a love for stories, especially how they can impact our entire lives, I highly suggest you pick these up. Additionally, if audiobooks are your thing, Steve West's voice is dreamy, which is exactly what you want for this type of book. That's it for this week. If you've read, watched, or listened to any of these, let me know about it down in the comments below. On the way down to the comments, if you hit that subscribe button, that would be very nice of you. You can like and share this as you see fit, and I will see you very soon. Bye!